learning about science by looking at contemporary art and using contemporary art as a means of talking about science. The question that I've been investigating is looking at how important is process for students over the final product that they create. And how can you really look at process as probably one of the most valuable parts of student learning? How do you evaluate it and evaluate the final product with an emphasis on what the students are learning and what the process is that they went through? Also, how do you validate that for parents, for administration, and for the students? How do you make them happy with the evaluation that you've done and really look at the value of really evaluating process? For me, it really is all about the process. I think that is where you can really look at how students learn. So evaluating what they learn, how they communicate what they learn, as opposed to the actual product that they create. Is the product important? A little bit, but for me it's really about process.
So using contemporary art really, I found, gets students thinking in a different way about science. It gets them talking and sort of learning more about a societal context. So in looking at people like Andrea Zattel and Vic Muniz, people who actually looked at how their art can impact the environment, the people that are in that environment. So I really think that social context is so important to learning about science, not just about the scientific ideas, but looking at ways to investigate and explore that and also communicate that. So using video reflection has been a really important thing too, because I think that's one of the ways you can look at evaluating process. How are students thinking throughout the process, throughout producing a product? So yes, assign the product, but don't put as much value into that end thing, especially for me with science students who don't necessarily have the artistic background, skill, or even just the practice in looking at creative thought to do that. What I want them to do is I want to think about how do you communicate these ideas to the world, getting them to use contemporary art and using that as a way to talk about science. I really want to look at sort of those 4 21st century capacities of creativity, critical thinking, collaboration, and communication, and really focusing on developing these as skills that they can take out into the world. Do I care whether they remember all the scientific concepts behind these issues? No. What is really important to me is starting to think about developing their creativity, getting them to look at other creative minds and how artists and contemporary art can address some of these scientific issues. Getting them to think critically, to discuss, do they agree with what these artists are doing? Do they have differing opinions? Let's talk about it. So it was a really good springboard for discussion. Collaborating, getting them talking together, not just working on a product together, but looking at each other's products and collaborating in the thinking process and in the planning process and helping each other get to that final product. Communication, I want them to talk about it. So whether it's in written paper, through video reflection, or presenting their final product, I don't want to just see that final product. I want to see how did they get there. So throughout that process and then talking about it pre, post, and after the fact. I want them to think creatively and critically.